before one weighs on a topic which is of such great import, it is very important to get the facts right. We live in a country where you as an individual are defined by your religion. If you want even a passport, you have to specify that another faith is false. Now let me come to the issue and look at it chronologically and get all the facts before we engage in matters of opinion. On the 4th of October last year, 2017, the Law Minister Zahid Hamid presented to the Parliament a bill for the conduct of elections in 2018. And relative to the previous times, to the previous years, there was one change in it, which was that instead of being asked to declare instead of being asked to, and I quote over here, say that I solemnly swear on the finality of the prophethood, that was changed to I believe in the finality of the prophethood. This was construed as softening of the language. This was construed as, do I need this? This was construed as being softening of the language on this matter. And it was pointed out in the assembly that this change had happened. The very next day, the Speaker of the Assembly said that this was an inadvertent mistake and that it would be rectified. And so on the 6th of October, that is to say 2 days later, that was nullified and the old language was restored. Now, this is important because 1 month later, the protests began in Faizabad, which is in Rawalpindi, adjoining Islamabad. It was organized by the Tehreek Labbaik Ya Rasulallah and headed by a cleric by the name of Khadim Hussain Rizvi. The government said that this protest was illegal because a mere clerical mistake had been made and that this had been subsequently rectified, and therefore there was absolutely no need for any kind of protest on this matter. Nevertheless, the movement of Tehreek Labbaik Ya Rasulallah demanded the resignation of the Law Minister Zahid Hamid. And when the government said that that had no basis, the house of the Law Minister was attacked, his guards were injured, and then other members of the ruling party, Chaudhry Nisar Khan, his house was also attacked. The protesters gathered in Faizabad. They refused to move. Their occupation of Faizabad was declared illegal by the Islamabad High Court, but they persisted. They persisted knowing that this was the vital artery that connects Rawalpindi to Islamabad, and that this would cause enormous inconvenience to the citizens. Eventually, the government gave them an ultimatum saying that you should move on, else you will be responsible. And there was a preliminary attempt made to remove them, which failed, however, because the government, through its police, lacked sufficient force. When the government approached the army, in fact, the Chief of Army Staff said that we do not believe that the use of force would be appropriate because we believe in peaceful means only. On the 26th of November, which is 20 days later, the government had to cave in. And it signed a surrender document. That surrender document has 6 points within it. The sixth is a reiteration of the first 5. So let me tell you what the first 5 were. The first is the resignation of Law Minister Zahid Hamid has been accepted. Second, the government accepts an inquiry into the changes that have been made in the election document. Third, the government agrees to release all activists, including those who had indulged in violence against the police and in fact had seriously injured several policemen and destroyed public property and had caused serious inconvenience to the residents of both cities. But it agrees to release all those arrested and will not press any charges. Fourth, the government accepts an inquiry into who was responsible for that change of language. And finally, and this is really how abject the surrender was, the government agrees to pay for all the damages that were caused by the protesters. Now, nowhere in a civilized country do you have masses of people coming out, damaging property, injuring policemen, causing mayhem all over, and then the government having to pay for their crimes. But so abject, so total was the surrender that the government endorsed all of these. Interestingly, the document of surrender thanks the Chief of Army Staff for his generosity. It thanks the Pakistan Army for restoring peace, which means do what you want. And as many of you have already seen, there was the Director General of the Rangers who was handing out checks to those who were protesting and saying, "Hum bhi aapke saath hain." Therefore, it is not a matter of speculation in my mind that these protests were orchestrated with a single objective in mind, which was to weaken the civil government, and done overtly and in defiance of the norms of a civilized society. So now, friends, ladies and gentlemen, the question is, will mobs rule Pakistan henceforth, or will it be the rule of law that we shall see in the years and decades to come? Alas, from this example where you had a mass of religious fanatics, those fanatics who celebrated the murder of Governor Salman Taseer and who now deify Mumtaz Qadri, his killer, who was subsequently hanged to death, these religious fanatics now want to rule Pakistan, and they insist that their might, their street power is really what matters, not the rule of law. This is very, very dangerous. And look, this is not just a debating point, it's a fact that today madmen are running loose in the streets. These are the people who dragged Mishal Khan out, stripped him naked, hit him with bricks, and then shot him dead. These are the types of people who were responsible for the burning of 2 Christians, a pregnant woman and her husband, and threw them into a fire in Kot Radha. That's the kind of Pakistan we will get if these people run the country. A great casualty of this episode has been the trust of Pakistanis in their army. This is an army that is supposed to safeguard not just the borders, it is also supposed, and it happily takes this responsibility upon itself, to assure internal security, and hence Zarb-e-Azam, Raddul Fasad, etc. And yet this army was thoroughly partisan. It sought to undermine the civilian government of this country, which you and I had elected. Why do they want to do it? Pretty clear, I think. Because the government of Nawaz Sharif was seen as being soft on India, and our boys make their bread and butter, and they get their plots of land based on just one thing, which is we've got to fight India forever and ever and ever. In conclusion, today we are seeing the birth of religious fanaticism en masse. This is the assertion of Barelvi street power. The Barelvis for a long time had been feeling that they are the underdog because their rivals, the Deobandis, had the support of Saudi Arabia and were able to proliferate their madrasas and Wahhabi thought in this country. The Barelvis, who think of themselves as more attached to the Holy Prophet, felt left out, but no longer, because now they have found a niche by which they can make further inroads. Backed by the army, they are out to destroy whatever there is of the rule of law in this country. We cannot allow that. We should not allow that. Let there be rule of law, due process in this country, not mob rule.